feel like we have more thoughts, but then when I talk about it, I'm like, why is it so shallow? And I feel like my description of Erwin, I did him dirty.
Hi guys, it's Rachel.
Hi, it's Anna.
And we're here today for another episode of a 20-something take. So today we're going to be talking about some movies that we like and that we have in common, and then our own individual movies that we both individually enjoy. And these are going to be movies centered around the topic of coming of age and sort of like 20-year-olds kind of like finding yourself and that sort of narrative storyline.
Since we're talking about movies, me and Rachel were like, okay, we should probably eat snacks as we go. So I have my trolley gummy worms. These are my favorite snacks. Shout out to the red and yellow one. That's my favorite. I know that's a controversial topic.
Controversial. It's red and blue. Oh my God, Anna. Okay, and I have some pretzel pieces. They're honey mustard and onion seasoned from Trader Joe's. So I haven't tried these yet, but we will see how they taste. So let's dive into our snacks. Oh,
mine were already open. I apologize.
Yeah. Mine are very mustardy. Oh, okay, ready?
This is not an ad, but we would love to be sponsored.
Hell yeah! Trader Joe's trolley, please sponsor us right now. I'll happily advocate for your products. Trader Joe's, I will definitely. I already do it on the daily. For our first movie, we're going to talk about Edge of 17. And this is a movie me and Anna have watched, I think, a couple times. But it's about this main character. Her name is Nadine, and she's a high schooler, and she has like one best friend in high school, and then she has a brother who's super popular and everyone loves him. He's like super hot or whatever. And so we'll give you like a basic storyline premise without trying to spoil it. But basically what happens within like the beginning of the movie is that her best friend ends up hooking up with her brother, and Nadine feels super betrayed by that, and like is like, oh my God, like I've lost my best friend. She's now like gone over to the dark side because Nadine and her brother don't really have a good relationship. So basically she kind of like severs ties with her best friend because of it. And then her best friend like starts exploring like popularity and like having other friends, things like that. And Nadine just goes through kind of like a lot of challenges finding herself and like finding like friends, her boyfriend potentially, and also like kind of coming to terms with her relationship with her parents because her dad passed away, but she still has her mom, but she's a really like touchy relationship with her mom. So that's kind of a lot of that back and forth. And then sort of by the end, she's able to kind of figure out who she is to some extent and repair some of the relationships that she severs throughout the movie. But yeah, I think me and Anna really, really like this movie. I think it's kind of like a deeper rom-com compared to some other ones out there, and it has like a lot of important messages and morals, I would say. So this is kind of like the first movie we would definitely recommend to watch during the quarantine.
I guess I don't have siblings, so I didn't really relate on that aspect to Nadine, but I think like this whole like coming of age part of it is like very relevant for all of us, because I feel like in high school, like your friends kind of almost define who you are. Like the people you hang out with kind of give you that like security and like how you go about school. And so I know like back in like middle school, high school, like when friends like changed friend groups, it kind of felt like a part of me like left, and like you don't really know how you want to like go about it, because sometimes like they're the people who you've like gotten really close to, who know you really well, but then like once they leave for something else and like kind of finding things for themselves, you're kind of like lost and have to like work on that yourself.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I kind of agree with you because throughout like elementary school, middle school, and high school, I definitely like went from different friend groups, and like I don't want to say like I lost a lot of friends, but like friends definitely moved on, and like they decided to pursue like popularity or different things and hang out with different people. So like as much as I didn't want to like sever ties with people, it kind of like ends up happening naturally as you like find different friends or as other friends go on to do different things. And like it definitely like I think like at that time it really hurts and like really stings because like your friend group is really important to you, and like these are people you see Monday through Friday every single day at school, like like especially in high school and stuff like that, because like these are the people you eat lunch with, these are the people you hang out with after school. But like in college things change a lot because like who you hang out with is like who you put in time to see, because of your quarter system, your classes are constantly changing. So it's really like you're not going to be seeing the same people every day, even if you wanted to. So it's kind of different. But I think especially in high school, it really feels kind of like the end of the world if your friends go different ways or follow different paths, because those are the people that you're really relying on and really close to. Yeah. And then in college, it's like whoever you choose to put in that time to like see, then those are the people that you'll actually end up seeing. Yeah.
I guess another part of the movie that is me and Rachel's favorite is the character Erwin, who is Nadine's friend that she gets to know after Eric is just like this new friend that she meets after her best friend leaves her. And Erwin is completely different than her, I'd say, like from like her usual circle. So he's like Asian American, he's very into art, he creates his own art. And then like when she gets to know him, she kind of, it's like exploring new things for her. And then she like gets herself to like go enjoy and see his art at his competition. And then like he introduces her to his friends, and it's kind of like a new group for her.
Well, another component of Erwin that we love is that he has this like very sort of nerdy, boyish look to him. He wears like one of those zip up American Apparel hoodies every single time we see him in the movie. I'm pretty sure it's like dark blue or I don't know what it is. But he wears it all the time. Very simple, very basic. And actually, like in the movie, you find out that he's really from like a well-off family. So he's like really rich, but like he literally just wears like the same zip up hoodie, and it's like, to us it's just like we've seen that in real life like all the time. So it's just like he's like the classic sort of nerd, and we like know like that this is the vibe. But he's a really sweet guy, and like I don't know, I think he makes his intentions clear, and he like pursues Nadine from the beginning, and like she just kind of doesn't treat him that well, but he's like so good to her. So it's kind of like, Nadine, wake up and see like how amazing Erwin is. And that is like a good like kind of a part of the storyline too. And like as she figures out who she is, like she comes to terms with that. So anyway, we just love Erwin in a nutshell. He's amazing. Okay, so that's all we have for Edge of 17, and that's kind of why we like the movie and why we would recommend it. It's just a fun coming of age story that challenges you a little bit and makes you think a little bit deeper. So now we're going to move on to Always Be My Maybe, which is another Netflix movie.
So Always Be My Maybe stars Ali Wong and Randall Park. They're both UCLA alumni. And the movie is kind of another one of like the recent Asian American movies that have come to light. And the storyline is about the two of them as kids. They were like neighbors, and they went to school together, and they were basically like childhood sweethearts almost. And they would like go have fun. Like they would eat dinner at each other's houses. But then when they got to high school, they had like sex together, and then it got super awkward after that. And then after high school, like they both like moved on with their own lives, and like Ali Wong moved away from San Francisco where they lived. And so it kind of was like a 10-year timeline apart, and then they finally crossed paths again. But by then, like everyone was doing different things now. Like Ali Wong is like a big chef. She owns a bunch of restaurants. And then Randall's kind of in the same place. He like works for his dad's plumbing and construction business, but he also like still runs his own band. And so it's kind of like them meeting again, and how they still like have these feelings for each other, but it's kind of like working through like adult life now, where they have different challenges to come across and how they work through that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cute movie. I think overall, like the storyline is kind of predictable, but I think it's it's awesome that first of all, there's like an almost entirely Asian American cast, or at least the two leads are Asian American, which is really awesome. And then it's also kind of just like a fun, lighthearted movie where like a lot of the things that happen can be like sort of relatable, I guess. Like things are awkward, things are like messy when you have like your first relationships and things like that. So they're not like, they don't romanticize it or use like these rose-colored lenses all the time. So it's kind of like a fun approach to like a rom-com. It's a little bit more real. And then also it's just kind of cute and heartwarming to watch. Like I think everyone has this sort of like fantasy of like high school sweethearts. Obviously, like I don't have a high school sweetheart, like it wouldn't happen. But like I think it's just really cute to see that like come together and like just like I don't know that like you could have hope for something like that to happen. And it almost seems like they're meant to be basically. So it's just kind of like a cute movie if you want something that's a little bit lighter and like funnier and also real with you.
And like I think it's like a movie that kind of represents a lot of aspects, like how we said, like an almost full Asian American cast. And it's also like a rom-com, but then it kind of talks about like how they like support each other on their careers, even though it's kind of like a big challenge for their relationship. But they're still like trying to achieve like their childhood dreams in that aspect and like still working towards that. And I think another thing that I personally really enjoyed about the movie is that it's based in San Francisco and was filmed in San Francisco, which was really nice because that's where I grew up. And a lot of the things in there, like, or the places I went to too, like there's this one scene where they went to this arcade and like took photo booth pics there. And like I did that same thing with a friend too. So that was super fun to like see it in the movie. And I was like, oh, like this is like very close to heart and like actually like very close to what I do too.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Yeah. So this is kind of just like one of those movies that I think a lot of people can relate to, especially if you're Asian American or from the Bay Area, something like that. There's just a lot of aspects about this movie that resonates with people, I think. So even if it's not like a storyline that's like totally new and like totally unexpected, I think it's refreshing because it's really real and like, I don't know, it takes place in a place in an area that we're familiar with, and also takes like an approach to like kind of a relationship that like I don't know, just like an Asian American relationship where they have to juggle like class differences, career differences, a lot of different things, but they still somehow manage to like get together despite it all. And that may have been a spoiler, but yeah.
And then the next movie that me and Rachel really enjoy, that is a very classic coming of age movie now, is To All the Boys I've Loved Before. So Rachel, do you want to just give like a quick summary of it?
So To All the Boys I've Loved Before is on Netflix. There are 2 parts to it right now. But I think we're going to focus more on the first part because that's our favorite part. But we can also talk about part 2 a little bit later. But essentially, it's about this girl named Lara Jean. She's also Asian American, which is actually really interesting. She's like half Asian or half Korean, I believe, in the movie. And basically, she writes a letter to all of her crushes that she feels really intensely for. And she just like writes them this like cute little note. And then she addresses them and puts a stamp on it. And then she like hides the letter and like doesn't want to mail it out. She's like, I'll just get all my thoughts and express all my feelings onto this like sheet of paper, kind of like a diary for her to vent. And then she like hides it away in her room. And then basically what happens in the premise of the movie is that one of her sisters, her little sister, finds all of these letters and then mails them out to her crushes. And like these are letters that have been like written over the years. So like she used to have crushes in like middle school or elementary school, and like now she's in high school. So it's a little bit different. And then one of her crushes, his name is Peter Kavinsky. She like he gets her letter in high school, and they kind of he approaches her and is kind of like, hey, like I got your letter, this is like really weird, like I think you're really nice. And then she like freaks out because she didn't realize that her sister had sent out all these letters. And then she ends up basically having a fake relationship with this Peter Kavinsky in order to like make his ex-girlfriend jealous and in order to make her current crush Josh jealous. So it's kind of like they use each other in order to like play games and like sort of like make other people jealous basically. And then obviously it starts out as a fake relationship, but things develop, feelings change, etc. And so it's kind of about like where is the line of fake and real, and like at what point do like real feelings start developing for them, which is like really interesting. And I don't know, it's just like a really cute, heartwarming movie. I think it comes out like every like Valentine's Day or like every Valentine's Day, basically. Um, and I don't know, it's just like really cute. Like the main character, she likes to bake. She's just like, she has a really cool sense of style. And I don't know, I think she's very relatable too as a character. So I don't know, it's like a fun sort of lighthearted movie again, but I think she really like finds herself and like finds like who she is, and then like she also finds like, you know, what kind of mans would be good for her. So like it's like a balance of a bunch of different things. And yeah, that's part one anyway. And then part two kind of is like an elaboration of part one. But I don't know, me and Anna watched it together, part two anyway, and we were not the biggest fans. Um, but yeah, I mean, Anna, do you have any thoughts about like part one or part two in general?
So I feel like because part one came out when we were in college, so I feel like it was a little younger for us. But I feel like if I watched it in high school, I would have been like, oh my god, this is exactly what I want. Because I think we've all went to high school and like gone through that phase probably where we're like, this guy because he's like super hot, super athletic, everyone likes him. But then you like, you know, that's like a crush, and so you don't actually like end up, or like you don't actually like go confess and do all that. So I think like the movie was kind of like, whoa, like she confessed. Well, her little sister helped her confess, but then it kind of like ended up being like a happy ending for her. And I think a lot of it was, I think also too, like how I kind of relate to her is we're kind of people who are more on like the introvert side, who kind of like hide our feelings and don't want to like take these risks. But I think it is taking risks that gets you where you want and like the things you want too.
Yeah, no, that's really true. I think the risk taking element, I definitely like feel that too. I think she's definitely like the kind of girl who plays it safe, or Lara Jean is like that type. And I completely like, honestly, like I'm like 100% the same way. Like I'm like, I ain't about to confess, like I ain't going out there. Like if I have a crush, literally I'll just like sit on it forever, and I'll just like be like, I hope he looks at me one day and realizes I have a crush on him, because I'm not gonna say anything. I'm like really bad at that kind of stuff. So I totally get where she's coming from, and I totally get that like aversion to risk taking, because like for me anyway, it's like not ingrained in me like whatsoever either. So that's kind of like an element of the movie that I think is really relatable for sure. And then part two is kind of like her dealing with like other crushes that like come into her life that also received a letter but like didn't reach out to her until later. And so it's kind of like at that point she's dating someone, and so now she has like to reintroduce these other crushes who could be a potential fit for her. Yeah, so it's like interesting, but part two just doesn't hit the same way that part one does.
I think part two, just like a lot of it was just upsetting, because we're like, how can she have all these options and like still like not be able to choose based on what she wants, even though like we clearly know what she wants. And then she's kind of just like hides away from it, which I think was just upsetting for us to watch, and we were just frustrated the whole time. And like,
Yeah.
And like the trailer songs did not come up in the movie, so that was also a big part.
Shout out to Nobody Compares to You. But they play San Holo. Is this like a rave? I'm confused. Yeah, so like I guess in a nutshell, that's kind of like To All the Boys I've Loved Before. Once again, I guess the theme is that it does have an Asian American lead and like that kind of thing going on for it. So I guess we kind of really like coming of age movies, Anna, that have like Asian American characters in them. Is kind of like the moral of the story. um, but yeah, no, I think it's really interesting, and they're all like, these are all relatively new movies, I would say, like within the past couple years, not too old. And so like I think these are some of the ones that we would recommend if you are looking for a coming of age film that that will especially resonate with you during the quarantine. Something not too serious and like that'll, you know, drag you down a little bit, because this is a little bit more lighthearted and maybe give you a little bit more hope during these uncertain times. So we'll also be getting into sort of individual movies that we both really like. And they're also sort of coming of age movies and films. And I think the first one that I can kind of think of is an anime actually called Your Name. And it's actually a really, really popular anime. The same director also did another movie called Weathering with You, which Anna and I have also seen. Hashtag shout out to, I would flood all of Tokyo for you. If you know, you know. And then, okay, so Your Name is like the original movie that this director had made. And it's about like this I guess they're like high schoolers, and they're in, one girl lives in like this rural part of Japan, and then this guy, he lives in Tokyo in the main city, and somehow their bodies kind of like end up swapping. So basically the girl ends up inhabiting the boy's body in Tokyo, and then the girl's kind of spirit or whatever ends up inhabiting or the boy's spirit ends up inhabiting the girl's body in the rural area of Japan. And so they keep like swapping bodies, and it's really funny because they kind of like learn each other's friends and their like dynamics and like what it's like to live in opposite genders' body, because you get like a lot of different like things like boobs or like a penis or like other random things. But you also learn how to like interact with coworkers. Like for instance, the boy works at a restaurant, and then like he ends up sort of hitting on his boss, but it's not really hitting on his boss because it's the girl inhabiting the boy's body. So they're really just being like girlfriends and like talking. But yeah, it's a long story. So they kind of learn a lot about gender dynamics and gender roles. And then as the movie goes on, you like find out more as to why they're swapping bodies and like different timelines, and like there's a meteor shower that's coming down that'll like be like, I don't know, it's a lot of different things going on. It's hard to like describe in summary about what is happening, but the basic premise is that this girl and this boy are like switching bodies, and they kind of have to figure out why, and also how to figure out on a day-to-day how to like cope with that and how to make that transition as seamless as possible, even though it's obviously going to be awkward and a little bit uncomfortable, no matter what. And I think it's a really good movie in terms of like coming of age, because it's really about like finding yourself and who you are, and also like what you value. Like the girl who's coming from this rural side, she like had always wanted to go to Tokyo and like have a big life, and that's kind of what she gets by like inhabiting the boy's body. And then the boy realizes kind of like the little things in life in the rural area, and like the value of culture and tradition, because they're a lot more like traditional in the countryside. So it's kind of like the mixing of values and like learning what it's like to live in somebody else's shoes. And I think it kind of just makes people more compassionate and more empathetic in its own way, just because you realize like, you know, people are experiencing very different lives around you, and it's easy to just like get absorbed in your own thing, but you also have to like remember to, you know, take a break, look around and be like, this is another person's life. And like, you know, if you're mean to someone one day, like just because like they piss you off or something like that, you also have to like think about like, you know, maybe they have a lot of things going on, or like they have something else going on in their life. So I guess it just is a reminder to be like cognizant and aware of what's going on in everybody's lives, and like everyone's lives is difficult. So that's kind of what I really liked about Your Name. Anyway.
So this movie is one of my favorite movies that I've watched recently. I actually watched it at UCLA when they had a screening of it, and the movie is The Hate U Give. I know it's like a very popular movie right now in the times that we're in right now. So I think it's a movie that I recommend to everyone, just because it's very educational, but also it kind of talks a lot about what's going on and kind of making it more relatable to everyone. And when I watched it at UCLA, like they invited the cast as well to like speak about their time while they were filming it. So it was also like really good to just hear about their experiences. So if you haven't watched it, I think it's on Hulu now, but the movie is like a political activism type of movie, and it centers around the topic of police brutality and you know, the whole like Black Lives Matter movement. And the story starts off around a 16-year-old Black girl named Star, and she kind of lives two lives. So she's from a very like where she lives, like in her neighborhood, it's a like a Black neighborhood, and everyone there kind of has been there for a long time. Their families have been there, and they've experienced a lot of like racism as they've had their time there. But then at school, her parents have sent her to this like basically all white high school, and so there it's like she's like the only Black girl there, and she kind of lives a different life because all her friends are they're very into sports. She has like a white boyfriend, and they just do very like traditional, you know, American school things. And then so kind of there she doesn't feel like she belongs because of like her hair, or like how she acts around people, or like what she says, or is like a little different. So then when she's at home or at school, she kind of has to adjust to that. And so that kind of like lays out the background of where she comes from. And then I guess the story centers around how at home she was invited to a party at home from like one of her past like old home friends. And after she leaves her party with one of her childhood friends, they get chased by a cop because he's supposedly like speeding, whatever. But so the cops stop them and then pull her friend out of the car, and they're kind of like, hey, you need to just stand there, don't move. But then he reaches into the car to like grab, I think it was a comb, but the police thought he was grabbing like a gun or a weapon, and so they shot him. And then he literally like died in front of her. And so I think that really was like the spark of it all, because she saw like her childhood friend literally get shot by the police just because he was like reaching in for a comb. And a lot of it wasn't just because they thought it was a weapon, but it was like how the color of his skin. So this kind of like sparked her to kind of like, you know, bring up this case, because I think they brought it to like the higher courts, and then the media started coming to like hear about this case, and like she spoke out about it. But then there ended up being a lot of like hate against her family and her neighbors because of this. But she continued, and it kind of was a story that the movie kind of brings together like just how like important like, you know, family and the community is during these times, and like everyone coming together to kind of fight for what is right. And even her as a 16-year-old can make an impact, and like bringing out the people from her community, and how this kind of spread out to like the cities around her. And so it's very empowering. I cried for a good amount of it at the end. And I think it was just very relatable, because I feel like anyone who watches it, like you can relate from like just being someone who's young, like even if you haven't seen these things happen to you, you know these things are happening, and kind of just putting yourself in like those shoes, and like, you know, even if you're not the same color as them, but or anything like that, like you can still do something, because this is something that's right and what you should fight for. And I think it kind of really just like brought out all these emotions about like, you know, we're all the same, and it's a lot about like family, the community, and just everything just ties together in that. And so definitely would recommend. I would watch it over and over again. And I think it's like a good, I guess when you're older too, like us, like in college, in your 20s, it's like easier to understand these movies too. Because I think when you're younger, I probably wouldn't have understood it as much, but now it's like, oh, like this is very relevant to what's happening around me, and I can do something after this. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a really powerful movie, and like especially relevant given our current situation and the current times. But yeah, no, it's definitely something I need to watch, and I need to get on it. I'm actually curious though, like I know the movie is called The Hate You Give, but why is the U spelled with like just a letter U rather than like YOU? I don't know if there's like a particular reason.
Because because The Hate You Give, the first letters spell out thug, THUG. So
Okay,
I think that was kind of like the background of it because it's like living their like thug life.
Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, that's a kind of a clever way of doing it. Okay, didn't know because I was like, everything else is spelled normal, but the U is, yeah. Okay, got it. All right, so I guess my last movie, bouncing off of that one, is one of my all-time favorite movies. And I have like a couple movie posters and a nose about this movie. But it's called How to Train Your Dragon, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen it already. DreamWorks animation, a great animated film. I think there are 3 parts to this movie, but I personally think the first one is my favorite. And yeah, I mean, off like traditionally, you might not think it's a coming of age movie, but it really is. It's basically, if, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's centered around a young boy named Hiccup and his dragon named Toothless. But basically, he grows up in a Viking society, or Hiccup does, and they're trained to kill dragons or like attack dragons the entire time. And like you might think it's silly, but I think it has a lot of metaphorical meanings to it. But basically, it's about how Hiccup kind of defies the rest of his village and his tribe, and he ends up like capturing this dragon one day, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna kill this dragon. I'm gonna prove to my dad that I'm like a real dragon warrior. And he like goes to kill the dragon, and then he finds out that he like can't do it because the dragon is like an animal and it has eyes and feelings and emotions and things like that. And so he ends up like releasing the dragon instead. But the dragon is actually like compromised, like he has like a missing tail, so he can't like fly away. And so basically he has to rely on Hiccup in order to feed him, and make him like just like survive in general. So they become like kind of dependent on each other in a weird way, and through that they become friends. And Hiccup is basically hiding his dragon the entire time because he can't tell his village because they're Vikings and they just kill dragons for a living, so they wouldn't really understand. Um, and so it's interesting because Hiccup starts learning these things about dragons, like what makes them tick or what makes them like roll over on their belly, like these little things, and they're really cute. And at the same time, he's like attending a school in the village that trains him on how to attack dragons or how to kill dragons. But he is like he's using a lot of the insights and information that he learns from having an actual dragon, to sort of like, I guess instead of like killing dragons in his dragon school, he ends up like just making them roll over on their bellies or like making them do other things that are just really cute, without like having to harm them. And then like basically there's a lot of tension because eventually they find out he has his own dragon, and then people are like, why the hell do you have your own dragon? Like that's messed up. It's not your pet, it's an animal, etc. And then yeah, it kind of like culminates towards the end in this sort of like final battle between like the dragons and Vikings. And it's interesting, I think, because I don't know, I think it's a really cute just like coming of age story of like being different from your community and the community that you grew up in, and like just having like maybe either like a different personality or just a different understanding of how things operate, and like I don't know, just kind of like being not afraid to take a risk and to be different from everyone else. So I think that's kind of what I really enjoyed about the movie, and that part of like growing up. And then in terms of like the ending of the movie, it's really cute because it comes like full circle a little bit, not to like spoil it too much, but there's like the final battle between dragons and Vikings, and then Hiccup, like he loses his foot actually in the battle, and it's kind of fitting because um in the, well, basically Toothless has like a missing dragon tail, so that's why he can't like fly on his own, can't do things on his own. And at the end Hiccup also has like a missing foot, so like together they make a whole, but like individually they're still like their own. Individually they're sort of like not perfect, but together they can like make a whole in a weird way. So I don't know, it's definitely like a kids movie. It's like an animated movie, that type of thing. But I think it's still something that I could watch even now as a 22-year-old and really enjoy and just be like, wow, this movie has like a lot of deeper meanings, I feel like. And it just warms my heart sort of at the end of the day. And that's probably like my all-time favorite movie. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm just like love How to Train Your Dragon. And if you guys haven't seen it already, like, get on it because it's a great film. So yeah.
My last movie to share is my all-time favorite. Rachel knows this. I think I like tell her about it all the time, which is A Cinderella Story, the original one with Hilary Duff and Chad Michael Murray. So like the 2004 version. But it's definitely, I think, like a coming of age movie, but like back then when they were still using like flip phones and like what do you call that? AIM, the messenger chat thing on like those huge computers back then. So I think that was like one of the first movies that I remember watching as a kid. So I really, really enjoy it. And as the title kind of speaks for itself, it's a Cinderella story, but like a modern day one. So it's about this girl named Sam, and she lives with her stepmom and her stepsisters now, and she basically works at her dad's, or like her dad passed away, but she like works at her dad's diner now to like save money to go to college. And her dream is to go to Princeton, and she has like really good grades and is like super hardworking. So she's like, this goal is like possible, and she like already applied for school or for Princeton. But then on the side, she starts online, or not, oh my God, online chat? No, it was like phone chat. I don't even know how this works. It was like pals or whatever it is. And then the guy, like they all have their own screen names, and then she's like, oh my God, like this guy is so great, like he relates to me, he also like wants to go to Princeton, but I'm like, I haven't met this guy yet, so I don't really like know who he is or anything. And the guy ends up being Austin Ames, which is who Chad Michael Murray plays. And Austin Ames is like the most popular guy in school because he's like super hot and like football quarterback and ASB president and everything. So like he and Sam like completely are like different worlds at school. And like Sam is always like picked on at school for being like diner girl, and Austin like dates like the popular cheerleader and like only has popular friends. So I guess it kind of brings out like the very classic like social pyramid hierarchy that exists in high schools. And so the movie kind of is just like how they find each other, and then when they find each other, there's like a bunch of other problems because people like want to stop them from getting together, as like what the original Cinderella is like, where this one, like her stepsisters try to stop her, and then Austin's girlfriend has like a bunch of things where he like hates Sam, things like that. And then at the end, I mean, I won't spoil, but it's kind of like Sam finding herself through this, and Sam and Austin both, because Austin, this was an important part that I forgot, but Austin is, his side of it is that he wants to go to Princeton because he doesn't want to play USC football because that's what his dad wants him to do. So they're kind of both on that, like doing what they want to do and kind of at the end getting there together. And I think as I grown up and watched it, I have had different feelings about it, because I think as a kid, or not even as a kid, like as a kid, middle school or high school even, when I watched it, I was like, oh my God, like I want to date Austin Ames, like this is the type of guy that I want. And then like nowadays I'm like, okay, no. Like that's not really gonna happen because high school is like back then now. But I think a lot more of it now when I watch it, it's like I really like Sam as a character because she's someone who kind of like motivates herself even when like people put her down, even when things aren't going right for her, she still keeps going, and she kind of seeks out like the important people in her life, like friends that support her. She finds like a really good mentor who is like basically the same as like the fairy godmother. So, and like even though like her and Austin like didn't really work out in this, when they found out about each other and people were trying to stop them, she kind of kept going about it and was like, it doesn't matter, like even if I can still like be me. And my favorite quote from the movie, or I guess it's like the only quote from the movie, but it's like she literally like the day before his big football game, she like walked into the locker room and like yelled at him and was like, waiting for you is like waiting for rain in this drought, useless and disappointing. And I was like, you go girl. Like I think this is like the mentality that I need to like embrace more. Like you don't need to wait for someone, you got to do it yourself. And if you want things to happen, you got to do it yourself, and you make your own happy ending regardless if there's your prince charming or not. So that's why I really like this movie, and I know there's like different versions of it now because it's been like 15 years, but hopefully you've seen this one, or if not, take some time to see it. I have it on DVD, and like I don't think DVD players exist anymore. So you know it's a real, true and near and dear to my heart.
I love it. I love it so much. But yeah, no, I mean, when I first met Anna, like, this is like the movie that I've always known that she's loved. Like, it's like been consistent from day one. So like, Anna has like a true dedication to this movie, and I love that. So honestly, it's amazing. I mean, honestly, okay, my favorite, like, I think it's a meme from this. Well, they often take this meme from this movie, but it's like the popular girl showing up at the diner and asking like Hilary Duff, and is like, what here is like 0 carbs, like fat free, whatever, like gluten free, etc. And then Hilary Duff just goes like, you can have water. Like that is the only thing here that's like sugar free, guilt free, blah blah blah, everything. So I don't know, that was like a really funny line. But I do think it's like amazing how that is like the movie that sort of prompted all these other like adaptations of like a Cinderella story, or like Cinderella in kind of a rom-com format. And yeah, I think it's like one of the OGs, and like definitely one of the best. So yeah. So those are the movies that we have for you guys today. We'd highly recommend you watch like Edge of 17, Always Be My Maybe, To All the Boys I've Loved Before, Your Name, How to Train Your Dragon, The Hate You Give, and A Cinderella Story. We'll have like the full list on the screen here so you guys can take a look. And we have some like additional movies if you guys want to check them out as well that we'd also recommend to watch during this quarantine if you guys have a lot of time on your hands. But yeah, I think these are all really important sort of like coming of age movies that like if you watch them on the surface, they're enjoyable because they're fun and lighthearted. But if you also think about them a little bit more deeply and critically, you can get some like, I don't know, some good morals and messages out of all of them. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I guess another thing is like the movie and the content that we consume like changes as you grow up, but some things still stay the same, like the genres of movies that you like, the things that are like always classic. So I think, you know, movies is like a different way for people to tell their stories, and I think me and Rachel really enjoy watching movies for like, you know, the messages behind it and like hearing other people's stories. And so hopefully some of these, you know, you'll enjoy as well, and we'd love to hear from you guys too.
Awesome. So that is it for this week's episode. We hope you guys will join us next week for an all new video. But until then, bye guys.
Bye.